Hello Kitty pulls out the surprise to come in second in that group, but Kane 4-0s the group. Slams it completely. It was really impressive to watch. He played like an absolute god. Now, we also have State. Now, State comes out as first place of a group where many people expected QXC to take the top spot. We had QXC, very well-known player, veteran of the scene, and 3 teamless players. State was one of them. He goes through only dropping a single map on a coin flip build against QXC, dominates the rest of the group, no problem. And that was incredibly impressive to watch. We then had Kane go up against QXC in an unbelievable fight that went 3-2, the craziest Widowmine game I've ever seen.
Is that the Whirlwind map?
That was the Whirlwind map,
awesome
man.
one.
Oh, I got 60 Widowmines on the map any given time. Nonsense, crazy nonsense. He gets through that and then fights an incredibly close series with Gosu User. Gosu User tries to make the comeback from 3-0 down, almost makes it, and then cracks at the end. Makes a bad decision, goes 10 pull, but then doesn't attack, and gets eliminated by Kane. And Kane makes his way through as the group representative for this. And then State, on the other hand, State really played incredibly well. He takes down Hello Kitty, just smacks him about, and then he takes down Root Minigun 4-0. Clean sweep, State looking rock solid this entire tournament. Now, as you are well aware, if you've been watching SHOUTcraft America, you can check out everything and support the players over on shoutcraft.com. There are the player tip jars. You are free to throw money at them, which is always a good thing. What we also have is the pre-game face-off. We like to hear the banter. We like to hear those guys go at each other and psych each other out before the tournament. This time around, we have them live and in person. I'm not guaranteeing a fist fight, but it could happen. And we will be going over to the stage with Axeltoss to talk with Kane and State. Take it away.
Thanks so much, John. Of course, guys, welcome to the NYC studio. I have both our players next to me. We got Kane and we got State. They're ready to go, and they're honestly really nice in person. So I'm gonna see what I can get out of them. But State, I'm gonna start with you. Obviously, this is gonna be your first PVZ of the tournament, which is a pretty interesting stat. So we don't necessarily know where you stand as far as the matchup is concerned. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts about the matchup going into this final?
I think it's balanced, but it's my worst matchup, definitely. So I'm going to do my best to do well, but I have no idea what to expect.
Now, speaking of which, I imagine y'all play against each other a lot on ladder. Can you talk a little bit about your history with Kane and your chances going into this final that you think?
Kane usually beats me on ladder. I think the stats are probably like 70-30, so I don't know. I feel like I might be better in a tournament situation, but I'm really not sure.
Would you say the experience factor is going to help you a bit? I feel like you've gone to a lot more actual live tournaments than perhaps Kane has.
I do, but I still get nervous, so.
Okay. All right. And Kane, of course, your matches leading up to the final. We had you in the quarterfinals versus QXC and against Ghost Users in the semifinals. I think it was a 3-2 and a 4-3. Very close matches. Do you see this match being as close as those matches?
Well, PvZ or ZVP is always my best matchup, so I feel a lot more confident going into this match, but State's a really good player, so I'm not too sure what to expect. I know on ladder, I checked the stats beforehand, and I'm 13-1 versus him, so we'll see. We'll see.
Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? I mean, come on, give me something here.
I don't know. I think it'll be pretty easy, but you never know. You never know.
State, any response to that?
I'm hoping it's a close series.
These guys are way too nice, Totalbiscuit, but certainly set up for an awesome final. Back to you guys at the desk.
Man, we're going to have to fill in with a little bit of caster banter here. Axslav, you're absolutely terrible at your job. Why is that?
Well, you know, it happens when you're just kind of bad at everything in general.
Okay.
Then, of course, if you're bad at everything, you'll be bad at your job, too.
Yeah, naturally.
But, you know, the one thing I'm kind of okay at, I'm pretty good at playing StarCraft. So at least I have one qualification for this job.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So why didn't you qualify for this tournament, Axslav?
Well, you know, I'm busy doing other things. This tournament would have been really a little bit too easy. And it was one of those things where it's like, you know, I gotta let these unknown players, you know, these ladder warriors
You're
get
already
away here
top
or
of
there.
the tier. You have nothing more to gain and nothing more to prove from this tournament. So, you know.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how it is, folks. That's a fact. If you heard it at the caster desk, you know it's true. Right, okay.
No
so
lies here.
No, we would never do that to you. Never. So let's talk a little bit about the format. Best of 7 to finish us off, always the best way to do it. Could have done best of 13, but these guys like that might be for a little bit too long. And Blizzard's saying, you can't overrun WCS. Like, oh, okay. But we're going to have a best of 7. It's going to be in a 5-map pool, as the tournament has always done. That means no vetoes, and it also means map refresh. So there's a coin flip to start that will determine who picks the first map. After that, it's loser picks. Once you have exhausted the map pool, the entire map pool becomes available again, which means that if you get to game 6 or 7, pretty much anything can happen. It's very, very hard to actually plan for that point because your opponent is able to break out any map, and they're able to break out the map that they're strongest on. They can bust out a unique strategy, and as a direct result, I think that's actually why we saw such a close series between Gosu User and Kane. Simply because of that, the comeback began, and then as the map sort of got thrown at him, everything changed up completely. So it's pretty cool. All of the pros believed that a smaller map pool was best, so we went with what the pros thought. You know, it's their tournament after all, so it makes the most sense. But these guys are playing for a grand prize of $4,000. Second place is $2,000. Not too bad. You know, you come to New York City, you get accommodation, you get tips, a little bit of fame, you get to see the glorious skyline of New York, and you get to walk away with $2,000. But $4,000, well, that's a different matter entirely. That's double the money. You definitely want to be taking that.
$4,000 could buy you a really fun night in New York City. Let me tell you that.
That it can, yeah. Or like 1.5 taxi rides.
Get you back to the airport, and then you realize you forgot your bag, so we can take you back both ways yet again. So of course, they're also fighting for that trophy as well. Not just the money.
Indeed, they are fighting for the trophy, which is guaranteed to push their hand luggage allowance above the maximum tolerance. So that's something that they're going to have to deal with. It's a little bit of a challenge going forward into this particular tournament. That tournament, it doesn't actually weigh as much as it appears, honestly. It's the kind of thing that it looks like it would weigh an absolute ton, but since it's got so many holes in it, actually not a big deal.
So, do we know what the first map is going to be played?
Well, we will be finding out very, very shortly. We're just doing the coin flip right now, and we will determine exactly who gets to pick the first map. And that's going to determine a lot of things, honestly. You know, you can very much see what kind of tempo the player wants to set based on their first map pick.
One thing I'm interested in is seeing what type of PvE style State uses. Because all through this tournament, we haven't seen him yet play a PvZ.
No, he hasn't. Oh, it's going to be Neoplanet S as the first map here. All right, so we're going to get aggressive from the outset there. Neoplanet S, just a little bit of a statistic, the least played map in this tournament so far. It was, for the most part, vetoed during the best of 3 group stage, and it usually ended up being the last map of the best of 5 if it had to get to that point. Most players don't want to play on Neoplanet S unless they are a highly aggressive player. Taking the third is very, very difficult to do. Zerg players avoided it unless they'd planned some kind of 2-base all-in build. So I'm intrigued to see why exactly Neoplanet S would have been picked first.
As far as PvZ goes, from what I've seen, Zergs really like to do the 2-base Ultralist tech on Neoplanet S.
Yes.
And Protoss typically almost always do a 2-base all-in.
Yes.
Although the Zerg's teching, then they might decide to take a third. But if a Zerg plays a more standard build, Protoss will go for that 2-base timing. And that is State's strong suit, at least in Wings of Liberty. He was a 2-base timing-based player.
Exactly. It's hard to assess from the tournament so far because, as you said, he has not played against any actual Zerg players. He's been doing PvPs and PvTs up to this point. But he's been playing very macro-focused builds against Terran, like 3 to 4 base builds, really, really strong. But as you said, in Wings of Liberty, he did a lot of 2-base in this matchup. It is State's choice as well, so it seems fairly accurate that he wants to do a big, powerful 2-base build to start him off, shut Kane down immediately, and get that map advantage.
We'll see if he can use that to take the tempo. Of course, Kane will probably knows what's going to happen on Neoplanet S. So does he have some ZVP counter build up his sleeve to deal with this? We'll have to,
Kane has the advantage of having a team and a lot of good Protoss players. Minigun now being knocked out of the tournament by State, no doubt wants revenge. They didn't have much time to prepare, but they did have about a day before they flew out to this. So there is the possibility that as a result of that, Kane has prepared some specific builds. State, on the other hand, of course, doesn't have a team. He's sponsored by Gamefront, as you can see by the t-shirt there. That's a personal sponsorship. And that's, it's great that he can get that personal sponsorship, but without team support, you don't necessarily have the practice partners you need to really prepare properly for a tournament like this.
In fact, I was actually watching these guys were setting up and practicing at these very stations for the last couple hours here. And Kane was actually playing against Minigun in his practice game.
Yeah,
so hopefully they were trying to figure out some secret anti-State way of playing to catch State off guard. Of course, like you mentioned, though, Minigun, he lost 0-4 to State in the semifinals. Yeah. So he definitely has a little bit of a wounded pride there and definitely wants Kane to take revenge for him.
Yeah, I certainly think so. And I think that when you have a tournament where you've had 5 Root players and 4 of them get knocked out, yeah, you pretty much have a situation where by proxy all the other Root players want to win for their team, especially since they had such a high showing. I mean, if you get a situation where Root has like so many players in the lineup and they don't win the tournament, then it's a little bit embarrassing. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say that it was a massive hurt to their honor or anything, but in that situation, you've got the edge, and you really, really want to make it work to make sure that your players get through. And yeah, all credit to them. Minigun got really far. He got to the round of 4. Kane gets to the final. So it's not like Root didn't get representation. They most assuredly did. In fact, they got 3 players through to the round of 8.
One thing that is interesting as well, actually, is the fact that State, I think it was the only player in this tournament that wasn't on a team when he first joined. Or maybe one of only 2.
There were actually, I think, about 4 players.
Okay.
Yeah, there was almost an entire group full of them, actually. Group D was Complexity versus a bunch of teamless guys. We had RSVP, who's not on the team. These guys, like, previously have been on teams. I mean, State, of course, used to be on Vile, used to be on Quantic. Not on that anymore. Then you had Hello Kitty, who is not on a team. He used to be on Pulse, if I recall correctly, not anymore. And then you had one of the players, Xenocider, who was not on a team yet. Upcoming 15 or 16-year-old. 15-year-old. And he played well, man. You know, he's a real Terran talent, I've got to say. He played extremely well. He trounced RSVP. He, unfortunately, was not able to handle QXE's Terran versus Terran. But it worked out pretty well for him. And I think he impressed a lot of people. So we did have a few teamless players, and that's the cool thing about inviting from ladder ranks, as far as I'm concerned. You can have that happen.
It's definitely possible, and that's almost a great way for a player to get noticed. I mean, if State does win this tournament, or even if he gets second place, it's going to be a really big move for him. Just pretty much saying that, okay, I'm this good. I don't need a team. You know, now you guys can all pay me money because I've proven that I'm the best player in WCS America.
Yeah, certainly. That's a big deal indeed. And we will be going into the game momentarily. As you're probably aware, Battle.net and GameHop particularly have had some invite problems over the tournament. I think anyone that watched the tournament pretty much knows that that's the case. And as a direct result, I believe we did actually lose you, so we may have to reset up the lobby, unfortunately.
It's all good. I mean, we have the program, so as long as everyone else can make it happen.
Well, let me put it this way. We're going to be putting a big, giant Smurf through his spaces today. He's going to be our dedicated observer for today. So that was the sound of simultaneously every viewer celebrating. They don't have to watch my terrible observing. So we will rely upon him for this, and we will see how it goes. We are in the second lobby right now, folks. As you can see, the versus screen is running. That means we will be getting into this game momentarily. It will be Root Kane playing Zerg and State playing Protoss. State will not, in fact, be picking RGN as his team. That would be very, very odd indeed. He is, in fact, teamless. We've got Kane in the blue and State in the red. They will be keeping those colors throughout the tournament. I will not be allowing them to change. You know how I get when you as a caster know this. Like, players randomly change their colors just to annoy you, and it's incredibly annoying.
It's of course the most frustrating if it's a mirror matchup.
Oh, good lord! It's like, who was this guy? Oh, the Protoss is here, the other Protoss is here, and there's some fighting going on. And yeah, that's really annoying. And I'm also convinced that the Koreans have a conspiracy against tournaments to randomly change the colors just to annoy the person in control of the scoreboard. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed.
It's definitely part of the master plan there. It's how they send secret messages past us and secretly tell your opponent exactly what's going on so they can make the most entertaining game possible.
That's
of course,
absolutely true.
the game is now started. It's going to be Neo Planet S. So this map, like we mentioned before, very focused on 2-base play in pretty much every single matchup.
Yes, indeed it is. And here we are, folks. We are on Neo Planet S, and I don't want to say anything because I might end up cursing the tournament. That seems like the last thing that I should be doing right now. But we're here. It's working. Everything's cool. So welcome, welcome to the Southwest position, ladies and gentlemen. Your first grand finalist for SHOUTcraft America in the red trunks, playing Protoss. His name is State. Versus his opponent. To the northeast position, from Team Root, in the blue trunks, playing Zerg, with the sassiest overlord you will ever see in your life. Look at that swagger. That's genuine swagger. He doesn't care. He's not got that special skin on. He doesn't need it. He's got the confidence. His name is Root Kane.
And Kane did sound very confident in that pre-game interview. So, of course, confidence carries over to all of his minions, knowing that their leader is confident in a victory. They can go and do their missions with a little bit of more of a swagger.
Indeed.
State going for the pylon outside his base.
Okay.
So more likely going to be a Forge or a Nexus first, as opposed to a Gateway expansion.
Yep, I would. Even on a map like this, I'd still see State going Nexus before Forge. Like, that's a possibility. Kane has not really been busting out the super aggressive openings in this tournament at all. So, honestly, unless you get a 10 pull from the Zerg, which you're not going to see, he's clearly going to go hatch first here, then you will actually be totally fine to put your Nexus down. And State, you can look. I mean, look at his minimals. He's clearly going to do that. So, we're going to see a nice standard slow opening from both of these guys, just feeling each other out as they try and figure out where to go with this series.
I find it kind of interesting that State didn't scout with the probe after building that first pylon. Of course, if you do that, then you can block that hatchery first build and forces Zerg to get the spawn pull first and kind of delay their opening a bit. When you open with a gateway expansion, you usually lose that ability, because with the gateway expansion, you need to get minerals even faster because your Nexus is already delayed.
Yes.
So it's very important to delay the scout just a little bit longer. But with the Nexus first opening, it's usually involves a faster scout to spot, like you said earlier, spawning pull or to block the hatchery. But State says, I don't need it. I know exactly how he's going to play. I'll just play a pure macro opening.
Yeah. This is the State that we've been seeing this entire tournament in pretty much all matchups. He's generally not that aggressive at the start. Obviously, we haven't seen him against Zerg, so it's really hard to say what he's planning on doing here, but this seems like pretty standard State from the start. I wouldn't expect him to bust out anything crazy to begin with. He is the player that I would consider to be the most solid this tournament. Like, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't pull off these really flashy, stylish, risky plays. Aside from his Oracle coin flip against Hello Kitty, or no, actually against QXC, which ended up being a dreadful idea, he has played rock solid this entire tournament.
That's been a trademark of State's play for quite a long time now. He's the guy who prefers to play a game where it's all about fundamental mechanics, and that's why he likes those timing attacks. If you play timing attack style, it's just about, okay, how many units can I get by the 9-minute mark versus you, and then can I control those units better than you can? And it's just basic, solid fundamentals, and that's the exact gameplay that State loves.
Yeah, he does, and he plays so well like that. Kane, on the other hand, aggressive, very, very aggressive into the mid-game, and then just never stops doing that. Plays a lot of Ling Ultra, obviously not necessarily the style you want to be playing in versus P right now. I mean, there's so many different ways to deal with it. If you end up in a situation where your opponent's got too many Colossus or too many Immortals, or both, you basically get trounced. Adding Storm into that composition, the Ultra Tech doesn't really work out so well. You often see players still electing for the older style of Broodlord in this matchup, assuming that their opponent doesn't have a decent air presence. That can still work really, really well. But things are pretty mixed up, I think, in CVP. We're seeing a lot of emphasis on air. Sky Toss is difficult to deal with. We're seeing Zerg respond with a very slow, grindy defensive style, using a lot of Swarm Hosts, a lot of Spore Crawlers, getting Vipers, Corruptors, and sometimes getting a lot of Muters as well. And speaking of that Stargate play, the first one is now out from State. He has begun building that. Now, this could really mean anything. If we see, though, he does have 4 gas, which indicates to me, unless he's going to do some weird coin flip, which, again, I don't expect an Oracle out of him at this stage, we're probably going to see a Void Ray.
One thing that it also means is we see no +1 weapons.
Yep.
The 4 gas before additional gateways means he's not going to go for any type of Zealot plus air unit aggression to try to deny the third base.
Yeah.
What he's going to do is probably get the robotics facility very, very soon after that Stargate. There's plenty of gas so he can afford both the air tech units and getting a jump start on that Robotech.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, we're going to start with the Phoenix. Now, I would be really interested to see if he does go to that. He could still play it, as you said. He could go the way that you mentioned there, where he goes for heavy tech behind it, and he can still pump the Phoenixes out at a decent rate. I mean, 4 gas is too much for that, but it does let you get sentries out, it lets you get tech, it lets you start building things, but I would be interested to see whether or not he decides to go for any kind of heavy ground presence, bearing in mind, as you mentioned, that he doesn't have any upgrades started yet.
I'm really curious to see if he's going to take a third base or go for some type of late 2-base timing. This type of opening where you get the Phoenixes and you get the Robotech and you go Sentry Heavy usually caters towards taking the third base once you have about 5 to 6 units on the ground there. Maybe once your first observer gets out in the field. But like we mentioned before, State, historically really likes the 2-base attacks, but the fact he's still building probes at this point in the game means he probably wants to mix it up here in Neoplanet S.
Yeah, interesting place to really want to take a third base. You know, it's so exposed, so difficult to deal with. We're seeing Hydralisks and Spore Crawlers coming out. Nice choice of the Spore Crawler, but people should, of course, bear in mind that while they heard, oh, Spore Crawler's been buffed, not against Protoss, it hasn't. It's of no use whatsoever there, and honestly, a single Spore Crawler is not the kind of thing that's going to deny sustained harassment on a mineral line for that long. Phoenixes are surprisingly tough, and they also do a really good job of just getting out of range because of that superior speed and maneuverability. So if you want to jump out of there, no problem whatsoever. It's really, really easy to avoid dying to spores. +1 range, we're going to see Hydra Tech coming out right here. We've also got Link Speed on the way as well, and there is the Colossus Tech coming out here from State. Hydra Speed coming on, so we will see some aggressive play.
It's going to be interesting is how well can Kane deny State's third base. Of course, a Protoss going for Colossi is going to have a more cost-efficient combination than the Zerg who's building Hydra. So it's all about the Zerg maintaining an economic advantage, which means slowing down and delaying the Protoss third for as long as possible.
Yeah, you see the couple of links going down at exactly the right timing there. Kane certainly knows what his opponent's going to do. The question is, can he stop it? Hydra Speed is not done yet, which means these guys right here, they're in a position where they could be picked off. He's got to watch out for that. They're probably not going to... Well, actually, they should reach the third before the first Colossus comes out. So this strike could very well work out. It depends really how effective the force fields are. Yeah, State's going to have a look. He should see that coming in. So he knows that his opponent is posturing. He needs to be in the right position. I'm actually kind of surprised. I was going to say he's not going to go home, surely. That would be the wrong move. He needs to put himself in a position where he can effectively engage. Looks like Kane wants to wait until Hydra Speed and +1 complete.
I think that's a smart move. I mean, State has more Zealots than there are Hydras out right now, plus he has the 4 Phoenixes as well. So if Kane tried to push him with this army, decent force field and the Zealot Phoenixes would tear this Hydra's force apart.
There's also a Time Warp available as well, and it looks like the Nexus... If the Nexus completes, of course, there'll be a photon overcharge, but I'd imagine Kane wants to strike before that happens and try and force a cancel, because that would be pretty huge, but I think he's going to have the time to do it. The engagement comes in, the Time Warp comes down as well. Phoenix is basically all lift, which is the best thing they can do. The Colossus gets a really bad engagement, though the Zealots are in a terrible spot. Most of them are actually forced towards the back here. There are, I think, enough lifts to clean this up, though, without too much of a problem. So, with the double Time Warp, losing all the Phoenixes, not exactly the most efficient engagement he could take, but he secured his third base.
He definitely secured that third. Losing the Colossus and all the Phoenix is a pretty big blow. I mean, that was a battle where he probably could have won it much more efficiently, given the fact his army was so much larger than Kane's. But not really able to utilize the damage output of the Phoenix there.
I love that. Like, a big muta switch after that kind of engagement, absolutely the right thing to do. If you know your opponent's Zealot heavy, if you know your opponent's investing a lot in Colossus Tech, and you just kill all of his Phoenixes, 50 mutas is going to do a lot. There'll be 2 Phoenixes up on the map by this point, but there are no Blink Stalkers. In fact, his Stalker count actually is at precisely nothing. So this is a great time to strike with this.
Oh, State, this is the moment when the Protoss has to be suspicious when the Zerg pressures, and then all of a sudden you see nothing from them for half a minute to a minute. Is he... Oh, he has resumed Phoenix production, so that's going to help him just a little bit.
Second Stargate coming down, actually, for that, but the 2 Phoenixes is not enough to deal with 15 Mutalisks by any stretch of the imagination. The Colossus is going to go down. This is a beautiful pick-off right here. You're looking to get the engagement, and that Phoenix got caught off as well. Mothership Core goes down. No photon overcharge is going to be available here.
Some good micro by State, though, keeping those 3 Phoenixes alive for now. If he can just defend for long enough to get a large air force, he's going to be in pretty good shape going forward. But of course, that's going to take him about 2 more minutes in the game to get that count up, and that's a very dangerous 2 minutes for State. Yeah,
with double Stargate coming down behind that, you'll have 3 Stargates. He'll probably want to transition to Sky Toss, but he's not started any upgrades for it yet. And the upgrade advantage is clearly in the favor of the Zerg player, who now has full map control. No Fleet Beacon coming down for Pulse Crystals, and I don't blame him. Like, if the Zerg player decides, oh, you're getting Pulse Crystals? All right, I'll just stop building Mutalisks then. Enjoy that investment.
Kane's coming in here pressuring, but State has so many units on the ground with the Guardian Shield and Stalkers to support them. The Phoenix can push away those mutas. He's actually going on the aggression now. No, he's going to back up just a little bit. All those Zealots are something he wants to find a way to utilize. So he wants to find engagement when he can deal with the Mutalisks and let the Zealots kill the Zerg while the Zerg doesn't have much forces on the ground.
Absolutely. I don't know if he'll be able to do that, though, honestly. The Zerg is very much capable of just surging out units when need be. Upgrades are looking really good for Kane as well. +2 air started. Phoenix is caught out. That was a nice pick-off right there. The mutas get 2. State not quite quick enough to react to that. Nice wall off to prevent the ground attacks. A lot of cannons going down here as well, which, you know, sounds good in theory, but it does mean that Protoss army is going to be smaller.
That's right, of course. He's spending all his gas on that air tech. Has a little bit of extra minerals. And at this point, he decided not to go for a giant timing, saying, you know what? I don't need more Zealots right now. Let's solidify the defense first, and then we'll, once I have air control, I'll try to figure out how I want to approach the game from that point onward.
Interesting place to take it. We've got a 5th base coming down right here. Another engagement comes in with the Mutas. However, State is able to get on top of that. About 5 or 6 Phoenixes on the field, 7 now, in fact, and the air weapons coming in. This is the kind of time when things get a little bit difficult, but if you keep the Mutalisks mixed in with the Corruptors, it's very difficult to properly target fire units down. And if you're target firing, it's much easier to micro the Mutalisk away because you can very clearly see who's being shot at any given time. So it's a pretty powerful force coming in right here. He is engaging against a lot of cannons and Phoenixes, though. I don't like this decision. He's taking quite a bit of damage, but the Ling Run by is certainly going to do something, and he takes the 3rd base out as well. And, oh, the Phoenixes just caught out a little bit there. Not a bad strike, I've got to say. Taking out the 3rd base, trading a few Lings and a Muta or 2 for that, yeah, that's worth it.
This might spur a counterattack from State, knowing his opponent used a lot of those speedings. And State, of course, currently at an economic disadvantage, but he may have a military advantage, at least on the ground.
Yes, indeed. He's got 17 Stalkers, 24 Zealots. They're not that well upgraded, if I'm totally frank. He has been upgrading from a single forge this entire time, which is definitely not State style. He really does love the double forge play where possible, but in this case, he hasn't really been able to do it. He's been spending his gas elsewhere. Blink is on the way. A good Ling attack comes in here, trying to kind of wrap around. There's way too many Mutalisks for that
Colossus?
I have no idea, but it's not going to be helping today. The Phoenix is trying to pick it off, doing a pretty nice job. He was actually, it looks like he was swinging around to the north there, and his force got split up and isolated. Kane in a great spot at this stage.
Oh man, State, he cannot afford to have his army split up like that. Kane will just jump on half of it and take it out. Then he'll take out the other half right after that. The Phoenix have all been taken out by the Corruptors. The Colossus is going to go down next.
There's the GG. First in this best of 7 series goes to Root Kane. Nice convincing start, I've got to say, by Kane, which is surprising considering, it's State's map choice. I wonder what State's overall game plan was there. You were talking about the idea that he made 2 base, but he was clearly posturing for a 3rd, looking to get Colossus tech, then he's forced to adapt his style. He says, oh no, the Mutalisk switch. I wasn't ready for that. I lost all my Phoenixes. I need 2 more Stargates, which means I can't go to double Robo production. I can't get the upgrades out. The Zerg was slightly ahead in that respect. And I don't have Templar tech. Perhaps the most important thing. No Archons, no Templar. You cannot kill off Mutalisks fast enough when you're facing a Muta Corruptor force. If it's pure Muta, maybe, just maybe, you're able to kite for a while. Yeah? Maybe you can kite and you can take the Mutas down eventually. But you lose half your army in the process. You need that AoE.
That's right, either AoE or going to full Sky Toss with Fleet Beacon and adding in some Void Rays as well.
Yeah.
Then you might be able to take it, but State was trying to keep a dominant ground army to potentially knock out Kane's bases, but then he didn't really, you never found an opportunity to use that high Zealot count. There was a large chunk of the game where he had about, 15 to 20 Zealots just kind of hanging around in front, and the speedings are way too fast. They just ran right past and sniped that Nexus. Yeah,
that was a really nice run by, actually. I was surprised that he was able to take the Nexus out. I feel that, of course, there could been a possibility to sort of wall that off a little bit more, but the Speedlings got right in while the army was trying to engage the Skyball from the Zerg. And then the Speedlings were basically what did the damage there to kill that Nexus off. Did a great job of that. Yeah, he loses some Speedlings, but taking the 3rd out is totally worth it, especially when you already have a fully operational 4th, and your 5th is on the way in the corner, which, State wasn't really even able to go across the map. Even with the Phoenixes, he wasn't really able to harass. The Hydras came out, he saw that, he got into a defensive spot, says, I've got to hold my 3rd, I've got to hold my 3rd. If I can do that, I'll be in a great position. And then suddenly, bam, you get this engagement here, which was really, really nice. Yeah, it was able to deny the attack on the 3rd base. It was an efficient engagement. He lost the Colossus and the Phoenixes, which is a bit unfortunate, but the Spire is already on the way. Yeah, this was never meant to be a big committal to Hydralisk.
That's right, and if the Hydralisk can take out the Colossus and the Phoenixes, that's huge.
Yeah.
Right there, ideally the force fields are behind the Hydras, so the Zealots come in there, and then the Phoenix can pick off Hydras one at a time and use their damage output. But with the Zealots unable to connect to the Hydras and the Phoenix not attacking them either, they stayed alive for a very long time and were able to kill a lot of the critical units of State.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Kane played a really dominant Zerg vs Protoss there. State just didn't look like he was able to deal with it. Yeah, okay, cool first engagement. That's cool, but, I mean, losing your Colossus, not good. But if you don't have extended thermal lance in that situation, you're pretty much going to struggle to keep it alive anyway, if you wanted to contribute to the fight in some way. But the response was really good. State wasn't prepared for it. He tries to react the best he can, but unfortunately, it simply was not enough. So, Kane looking dominant. Of course, we'll be going into the next map once State has taken a break. He his couple of minutes to collect himself. That is generally the way of things when you have to deal with an early loss there. You know, State has not been in a live tournament setting for quite some time. Neither has Kane, admittedly. You know, this is actually Kane's first time in a really big city like this, so it's pretty crazy. Hopefully he's not scared of heights.
He was mentioning actually it was really crazy for him to be in New York. He comes from a city, I think he said 40,000 people.